The alien princess thought her daughter had lost the war until she back with a human by her side. Asterisk Princess Zareth stood before the massive communication screen in the royal war room. Her silver blue hands trembled as she watched the static-filled image of her daughter. Commander Lysoth looked tired and hurt. Her once bright purple uniform was torn and dirty. Dark blood stained her left arm. "Mother," Lysoth's voice crackled through the speakers. "The situation here is very bad. We have lost most of our ships. Only 12% of our forces are still alive." Zareth pressed her hand against the cool metal wall. She wanted to reach through the screen and pull her daughter to safety. But Kepler 4 for 2b was 3 star systems away. Even their fastest ships would take 2 weeks to reach the frontier world. "The Thexani have surrounded us," Lysith continued. Her voice was calm, but Zareth could see fear in her daughter's golden eyes. "They cut off all our escape routes yesterday. No food comes in, no medicine, no help." Behind Lysoth, explosions lit up the dark sky. The ground shook, making the camera move. Somewhere in the distance, someone was screaming. Zareth H. closed her eyes. She did not want to hear the sounds of war. "We fought hard, Mother. The soldiers here are brave. They follow every order. But the enemy has too many ships, too many weapons, too many soldiers." Lysoth looked directly into the camera. "I wanted you to know that we tried our best." Loud boom shook the transmission. Lysoth H. fell sideways. When she got back up, a cut on her forehead was bleeding. She wiped the blood with her sleeve. "The Thexani are coming closer. They will reach our base in maybe 6 hours. We have no more ammunition for the big guns. Our shields are almost gone." Lysoth H. paused. "Mother, I want you to know that I love you. Tell Father that I was proud to serve our people." "Lysoth, no?" Zareth shouted at the screen. "Find a way to escape. Hide in the mountains. Wait for help to come." But her daughter could not hear her. This was a recorded message sent hours ago through the Deep Space Communication Network. "The enemy does not take prisoners," Lysoth H. said. Her voice was steady now. "Everyone knows this. But we will make them pay for every step. We'll fight until the end." Another explosion, much closer this time. The lights in Lysoth's command center went out. Emergency red lights came on, making everything look like blood. "I have to go." "Now," Lysoth H. said, "the attack is starting. Remember me, Mother? Remember all of us who died far from home?" The transmission cut to static. The screen went black. Zareth stared at the empty screen for a long time. Round her, the war room was silent. General Kethron, her military advisor, stood nearby. His old face was sad. Communications officer Veland worked at her station, trying to contact Kepler 4 for 2b. "Again, can we reach them?" Zareth asked. Veland shook her head. "No response, Your Highness. The planet's communication stations are not working." "Send scout ships," Zareth ordered. "My princess," General Kethron said softly. "The Thexani control that space now. Any ship we send will be destroyed." Zareth wanted to scream. She wanted to take the royal fleet and fly to Kepler 4 for to be herself, but she knew it was too late. By the time they arrived, the battle would be over. That night, Zareth sat alone in her private rooms. She held a small crystal that showed moving pictures of Lysoth H. as a child. In the images, her daughter was laughing and playing in the palace gardens. She looked so happy then, so safe. The days passed slowly. Every morning, Zareth asked for news from Kepler 4 to be. Every morning, the answer was the same. No contact, no signals, nothing. After 1 week, refugee ships began arriving from nearby systems. The survivors told terrible stories. Burned entire cities. They destroyed hospitals and schools. They showed no mercy to anyone. "They are moving toward the core worlds," reported Captain Moresh, who had escaped from the Tau Ceti system. "Their fleet is huge. Thousands of ships. They want to control everything." General Kethron began preparing defenses around the home system. He moved the royal fleet to protect the capital world, but everyone knew the truth. If the Thexani wanted to attack them, they could not stop them. 3 months passed. Zareth wore black clothes to show her sadness. She held a memorial service for Lysot H and all the soldiers who died on Kepler 4 for 2b. The whole planet mourned with her. Your daughter was brave, people told her. She died with honor. But Zareth did not want honor. She wanted her daughter back. The war meetings continued every day. Maps covered the walls, showing Thaxoni movements. Red markers showed captured worlds. Blue markers showed their own forces. Every day there were more red markers and fewer blue ones. They will attack us next, General Kethron said during one meeting. Our spies report massive ship movements in the enemy sectors. How long do we have? Zareth asked. Maybe 2 months. Maybe less. Zarath looked at the tactical display. So many worlds lost. So many people dead. And now the enemy was coming for her own people. It was late in the evening when everything changed. Zareth was in the war room, reading reports from the front lines. The news was always bad these days. Suddenly alarms began ringing throughout the palace. Your Highness, Communications Officer Velen called out. We are detecting an unscheduled ship approaching the home system. Thaxani? General Kethron reached for his weapon. No, sir. The ship is broadcasting Velkari identification codes. Zareth stood up quickly. Which codes? Valen checked her instruments. Her face went white. Commander Lysoth, S. Personal. Access codes, Your Highness. The war room fell silent. Everyone stared at the communications officer. That is impossible, General Kethron whispered. She is dead. But Zareth felt something she had not felt in 3 months. Hope, maybe, somehow, her daughter had survived. Maybe this was not the end of the story. Track that ship, she ordered. Guide it to the Royal Spaceport. Prepare a medical team. As the unknown ship came closer, Zareth watched the scanner displays. Her heart was beating fast. In a few hours, she would know the truth. Was her daughter really alive? And if so, how had she escaped from Kepler 4 for to be? The answers would change. Everything. The Royal Spaceport was full of activity. Guards ran to their positions. Medical teams stood ready with floating stretchers. Princess Zareth watched from the observation deck as the small ship came down through the clouds. The ship was damaged badly. Burn marks covered its metal skin. One engine was missing completely. The other engine made strange noises as it landed. Zarath wondered how such a broken ship had traveled through space. Landing successful, reported. The port control officer. The ship is safe on the ground. Zarath's hands shook as she walked down to the landing platform. Her heart was beating so fast, she could hear it in her ears. Behind her, General Kethron and 6 royal guards followed. The medical team moved closer to the ship. Steam came out of the ship's engines as they cooled down. The landing door opened with a loud hiss. For a moment, nobody came out. Then a figure appeared in the doorway. It was Lysot H. Zareth ran forward without thinking. Her daughter was alive, thin and tired, but alive. Lysoth jumped down from the ship and caught her mother in a strong hug. I missed you so much, Zareth whispered. Tears ran down her face. I thought you were dead. The transmission, explosions. ... Double quotes, I am sorry, mother. I could not contact you. The communication systems were broken for a long time. Lysoth stepped back and smiled. But I am here now. Zarath looked at her daughter carefully. Lysot H seemed different. Her eyes were sharp and alert. She stood straighter, like a real military commander. Her movements were quick and sure. This was not the same young officer who had left for Kepler 4 to be 1 year ago. How did you escape? General Kethron asked. Our reports said the Thaxani controlled the entire planet. That is a long story, Lysot said. First I want you two meet someone. Another figure stepped out of the ship. Zarath stared in surprise. This was not a Velkari. This was not a Thaxani. This was something completely different. The creature stood on 2 legs like a Velkari, but it was shorter and had different skin. Its skin was brown, not blue or purple. It had hair on its head, instead of the crest that Velkari had. Its eyes were small and dark. It wore pieces of Velkari armor, but the pieces did not fit well on its strange body. Most unusual were the weapons it carried. They looked old and simple, nothing like the energy weapons that civilized people used. These weapons used metal bullets, like the ancient weapons from Velkari history books. "This is Marcus Chen Lisat," H said. "He is a human. He comes from a planet called Earth." Marcus stepped forward and made a slight bow. He said something in a strange language that sounded rough and quick. "He says he is honored to meet you." Lisat H translated, "Humans do not speak our language yet. I have been teaching him, but it is difficult." General Catherine moved closer to examine Marcus. "I have never seen a species like this. It is not in any of our databases." "That is because humans are new to space travel," Lysith explained. "Their planet was only discovered recently by our deep space scouts. Marcus was on Kepler-44 to be studying our military methods when the Thaxani attacked. Zareth studied the human carefully. He did not look dangerous. In fact, he looked quite weak compared to a Velkari warrior. His weapons were primitive. His armor was broken in several places. But something in his eyes made her think he was very intelligent. "Why did you bring him here?" she asked her daughter. Lisoth smiled. "Because he saved my life. And because he taught me how to fight in ways the Thaxani never expected." "What do you mean, General?" Catherine looked confused. "This creature knows about warfare, but look at his weapons. They are ancient technology." Marcus said something to Lysat H. She nodded and replied in his language. Their conversation was quick and full of hand movements. "Marcus wants to know if he can show you something," Lysat said. "Sunk about the war on Kepler-44b." General Kethron looked at Princess Zeret H. She nodded. Marcus reached in too. A bag and pulled out a small device. It projected pictures into the air above it. The images showed a map of Kepler-44b. Red dots marked enemy positions. Blue dots marked friendly forces. But something was wrong with the map. There were many more blue dots than red dots. "I do not understand," General Kethron said.
"This
"Map shows that we control most of the planet." "That is impossible." Lisoth smiled bigger. "It is not impossible. It is real. Those pictures are from yesterday." The room became very quiet. Everyone stared at the map. "Lisoth," Zareth said slowly, "are you telling me that you won the battle on Kepler-44b? Not just the battle?" "Mother, we won the whole campaign. The Thaxani forces on that planet are trapped in their bases. They are afraid to come out." Marcus spoke again. This time Lysoth's translation was longer. "Marcus says the enemy makes many mistakes because they do not understand human fighting methods. They expect us to fight the old way. Direct attacks, big battles, honor combat. But humans taught me that there are many other ways to win." General Kethron shook his head. "But our last report said you were losing. Only 12% of your forces remained." "That report was true," Lysat H said. "But it was also part of our plan. We wanted the Thaxani to think they were winning. While they celebrated, we were preparing something they never expected." Marcus pulled out another device. This one showed videos of Thaxani soldiers. But these soldiers did not look proud and strong. They looked scared. They kept looking over their shoulders. They jumped at small noises. "The enemy is afraid," Lysith continued. "They do not know where we will attack next. They do not understand our new tactics. Marcus calls it asymmetric warfare." Zarath did not understand that term, but she could see the results. In the videos, Thaxani bases looked like prisons. The soldiers stayed inside all the time. They only moved in large groups. "How many enemy soldiers are left?" General Kethron asked. Lysat H and Marcus spoke quickly, then Lysoth smiled. "About 40% of their original force. The rest are dead, wounded, or have run away." The medical team, who had been waiting to help. Injured soldiers stood with their mouths open. The guards looked amazed. General Kethron sat down heavily in a chair. "This changes everything," he whispered. Zarath felt her mind spinning. 3 months ago, she thought her daughter was dead. Now Lysat H was standing here, talking about victory, and this strange human creature was somehow responsible. "But how?" she asked. "How did you turn defeat into victory?" Lysat H and Marcus looked at each other. Marcus said something and pointed at the damaged ship. That is a very long story, Lysat, H said. But the short answer is that humans think about war differently than we do. Marcus showed me that sometimes the best way to fight a strong enemy is not to fight them directly. Marcus spoke again, longer this time. He says that on Earth, humans learn to survive by being clever, not strong. They learn to use their environment. They learn to work together in new ways. Most importantly, they learned that the enemy's strength can become the enemy's weakness. Princess Zerath looked at her daughter, then at the human, then at the battle maps still floating. In the air, everything she thought she knew about the war was wrong. There is something else, Lysith said. Her voice became serious. The Thaxani are planning a final attack on our core worlds, a massive fleet. They think Kepler-4 for it to be is lost, so they want to end the war quickly. How do you know this? General Kethrin asked. Marcus and Lysith smiled at the same time. "'Cause we have been listening to their communications for 2 months, Lysat H said, and Marcus has a plan to stop them. Princess Zeroth led the group to the palace war room. She wanted to understand how her daughter had achieved the impossible. Marcus sat at the large table, looking small next to the tall Velkari officers. But when he began explaining his methods, through Lyssoth's translation, everyone listened carefully. "I'll show them the first lesson," Lyssoth said to Marcus. Marcus nodded and activated his projection device. Images filled the air above the table. The first image showed a Thaxani supply convoy moving along a mountain road. "This was 3 months ago," Lysat H explained. "After my last transmission to you, Mother, we were hiding in the caves, almost out of ammunition. The enemy controlled all the roads and cities. The image changed. Now it showed the same convoy, but the vehicles were destroyed and burning. How did you attack such a large convoy with so few soldiers?" General Kethrin asked. Marcus spoke, and Lysat H translated. Marcus said we did not attack the convoy directly. We attacked the road. "The road?" Marcus taught me that sometimes the best target is not the enemy, but what the enemy needs. Lysat H pointed to the images. Thaxani vehicles are very heavy. The mountain roads are narrow. Marcus showed me how to use mining explosives from the old factories. The next image showed Velkari soldiers placing small devices under a bridge. These were not military weapons. They were simple mining tools used by farmers to clear rocks. "We waited until the convoy was crossing the bridge," Lysith continued. "Then we destroyed the bridge. The first vehicle fell into the river. The vehicles behind could not move forward or backward. They were trapped." Marcus said something and made hand gestures. Lyssoth smiled. Marcus says this is called a choke point. Humans learned this tactic when they fought much stronger enemies. On their own planet, General Kethron studied the images. But what about the Thaxani air support? Their flying ships could have rescued the convoy. "That was the second lesson," Lysat H said. "Marcus taught me that the enemy's strength can become their weakness." The projection showed new images. Thaxani aircraft flying toward the trapped convoy. But as they got closer, the flying ships began crashing into the mountain walls. "We used their own sensors against them," Lysat H explained. Marcus showed me how to build false signal transmitters. "We made the aircraft think the mountain was empty space. Their navigation systems led them straight into solid rock." Marcus spoke again. This time his words were longer and more excited. He says that humans always study their enemies carefully. They learn how the enemy thinks, how they act, what they expect. Then humans do the opposite. Zerath was beginning to understand. "You made the Thaxani fight a kind of war they had never seen before." "Exactly," Lyseth said. "For thousands of years, the Thaxani have conquered planets the same way. They use superior technology and greater numbers. They expect their enemies to meet them in direct battle." Marcus activated another part of his device. These images showed Thaxani soldiers in their bases. They looked nervous and tired. After the convoy attack, the enemy became more careful, Lyssoth continued. They only moved in large groups. They sent scouts ahead. They used more protection. "That sounds like good military thinking," General Kethrin said. "It was good. Thinking for a normal war," Lysith replied. but Marcus taught me that we were not fighting a normal war anymore. The images showed what happened next. While the Thaxoni were protecting their supply lines, Velkar soldiers were sneaking into enemy bases at night. But they were not attacking soldiers. They were doing something much more clever. We reprogrammed their food machines. Lysoth said Marcus learned their computer language by studying captured equipment. We made the machines put sleeping medicine in the enemy's food. The next image showed Thaxani soldiers falling asleep while on guard duty. While they slept, we took their weapons and communication equipment. When they woke up, they found messages written on their walls. What kind of messages? Zareth asked. Marcus spoke, and Lysoth's translation made her smile. We wrote things. Like we were here while you slept, and next time we will not be so kind. General Kethrin shook his head. Psychological warfare. You made them afraid of their own shadows, Lysoth said. Marcus explained that fear is more powerful than any weapon. Scared enemy makes mistakes. They stop thinking clearly. Images changed again. This time they showed Kepler-4 for 2B's dangerous wildlife. The planet had large predators with sharp teeth and thick armor. The third lesson was about using the environment, Lysoth said. The Thaxani stayed in their bases because they were afraid of the local animals. But Marcus taught me that every environment has allies if you know how to find them. Marcus spoke and pointed to an image of a creature that looked like a giant wolf with metal-hard skin. Marcus studied the animal's behavior, Lysoth H. translated. He learned that they hunt in packs, and they are very territorial. He figured out how to lead them toward enemy outposts. How? General Kethrin asked. Animals hunt by smell. They collected Thaxani scent from their garbage and spread it around their own bases. The creatures thought the bases were enemy territory that needed to be defended. The images showed the results. Giant wolf-like creatures attacking Thaxani guards, while Velkari soldiers watched safely from a distance. Marcus says that humans learned long ago to work with nature, not against it, Lysoth continued. While the animals kept the enemy busy, we captured 3 more bases. Marcus brought up a new set of images. These showed Valkyrie technology that had been changed in strange ways. The fourth lesson was about adaptation, Lysoth said. Our weapons and equipment were designed for traditional warfare. Marcus taught me to use them in new ways. The images showed communication devices that had been turned into jamming equipment. Medical scanners had become spy tools. Even farming equipment had been made into weapons. Marcus has a saying, Lysoth said. If you cannot win by the rules, change the game. That sounds like cheating, one of the younger officers said. Marcus spoke firmly, and Lysoth's translation was equally firm. Marcus says that the only real rule in war is to protect your people and stop the enemy from hurting them. Everything else is just tradition. Zara thought about this. But how did you coordinate all these different attacks? The Thaxoni must have tried to adapt to your new methods. They did try, Lysoth H. admitted. But that was the 5th lesson. Marcus taught me that humans succeed because they never stop learning and changing. The final images showed a timeline of the campaign. Each enemy adaptation was met by a new, human-inspired tactic. When the Thaxani started using different sensors, Marcus found ways to fool those too. When they changed their communication codes, Marcus taught the Valkyrie how to break the new codes. The enemy became so busy trying to predict our next move that they stopped making their own plans, Lysoth explained. They became reactive instead of active. They were always one step behind. Marcus said something that made Lysoth look serious. But now we face a bigger challenge, she translated. Our success on Kepler-4 for 2B has made the Thaxani desperate. They are gathering their entire fleet for one final attack on our core worlds. General Kethron looked worried. How large is this fleet? Marcus and Lysoth H. spoke quickly, and Lysoth turned to face her mother. More than 2,000 ships, mother. They plan to attack in 6 weeks. The room became silent. Even with their new tactics, facing such a large force seemed impossible. However, Lysoth continued, Marcus believes we can stop them. But his plan is very dangerous and very unusual. What does he propose? Zareth asked. Lysoth looked at Marcus, who nodded. Instead of waiting for them to attack us, she said, Marcus wants us to attack them first. at their home system. With a much smaller force, General Kethron stood up quickly. That is not just dangerous, that is suicide. Marcus spoke calmly, and Lysoth translated his words. Marcus says that sometimes the most dangerous plan is also the safest one because the enemy will never expect it. The War Council meeting lasted for 6 hours. Around the large table, 20 of the most experienced military officers in the Velkhari Empire argued about Marcus's plan. Most of them thought it was crazy. Attacking the Thaxani home system with only 50 ships? Admiral Korath slammed his hand on the table. It is not brave, it is foolish. We will lose everything. The enemy has 2,000 ships, General Moran added. Even if we succeed in reaching their home system, how can we possibly win? Princess Zareth listened to the arguments. Her military advisors were good people, but they were thinking like traditional commanders. They wanted to build strong defenses and wait for the enemy to attack. Marcus sat quietly during most of the discussion. He did not understand all the Velkhari words, but he could see that many officers disagreed with his plan. Lysoth translated the main points for him. They are afraid, Marcus said to Lysoth H in his own language. What did he say? General Kethron asked. Marcus says that fear is natural when facing a stronger enemy, Lysoth translated. But he also says that the enemy is afraid too. The Thaxoni are not afraid, Admiral Korath laughed. The largest fleet in the galaxy. They have conquered dozens of worlds. Marcus spoke again, longer this time. Lysoth listened carefully before translating. Marcus says that strong enemies are often the most afraid of all. They are afraid of losing what they have. They are afraid of looking weak. Most importantly, they are afraid of things they do not understand. Marcus activated his projection device. New images appeared above the table. These were not battle scenes. They were recordings of Thaxoni communications. For the past 3 months, Marcus has been studying more than just their military tactics, Lysoth explained. He has been learning about their society, their culture, and how they think. The recordings showed Thaxoni commanders talking to each other. Even through the translation, their voices sounded worried and angry. Commander Vexith reports unusual enemy activity on Kepler 44-B, one voice said. Request permission to change patrol routes. Permission denied, another voice replied. Follow standard procedures. But sir, the enemy is using tactics not found in our combat manuals. All tactics are in the manuals. Follow orders. Marcus paused the recording and spoke to Lysoth H. Marcus says this conversation shows the enemy's greatest weakness, she translated. Their commanders cannot make decisions without permission from higher authority. General Kethron looked interested. Explain. Marcus brought up a diagram, showing the Thaxani command structure. It looked like a pyramid, with one leader at the top and many layers of officers below. In Thaxani society, questioning orders is considered treason, Lysoth continued. Individual commanders cannot adapt to new situations. They must always ask permission first. That does not sound like a weakness, Admiral Korath said. It sounds like good discipline. Marcus played another recording. This time, the voices sounded more desperate. Base 7 has been attacked again. Same unknown methods. Request immediate reinforcements. Reinforcements are not available. Defend with current resources. Sir, current resources are insufficient. The enemy appears and disappears like ghosts. There are no ghosts. Increase patrols and follow standard anti-infiltration procedures. The recording ended. Marcus looked around the table and spoke. Marcus says that rigid thinking is useful when everything goes according to plan, Lysoth translated. But when the plan fails, rigid thinking becomes deadly. Princess Zareth was beginning to understand. You are saying that the Thaxani cannot adapt quickly to unexpected situations. Exactly, Lysoth H said. And Marcus has identified other weaknesses. 2. Marcus brought up new images. These showed Thaxoni communication networks. The patterns looked very organized and predictable. Your communication system is very secure, Lysoth H explained. But it is also very routine. Messages are sent at the same times every day. The same routes are used. The same codes are repeated. Humans learn to break patterns like this during their own wars, she continued. Marcus says that security based on routine is not really security at all. Marcus activated another part of his presentation. This showed detailed analysis of Thaxani's ship movements over the past year. Look at this pattern. Lysath pointed to the display. Every 6 weeks, their patrol fleets return to base for maintenance. Every 3 months, they rotate commanders. Every year, they hold a military ceremony that brings all their leaders together. General Kethrin studied the patterns. You are saying their entire military operates on a schedule? A schedule that never changes? Lysath confirmed. Marcus has been tracking these patterns for months. He knows exactly where their ships will be and when. Marcus spoke again, and his voice sounded confident. Marcus says that humans have another advantage, Lysath H translated. Humans are very good at pretending to be something they are not. What do you mean? Princess Zareth asked. Marcus smiled and activated a new recording. This time, it was Lysath's voice speaking in the Thaxani language. Attention all ships, the recording said. This is Fleet Command. Change course to Sector 7 immediately. The room fell silent. Lysath had been speaking perfect Thaxani. Military language. Marcus taught me to copy their speech patterns, Lysath explained. Humans call this impersonation. We can make the enemy think we are one of them. Admiral Korath looked shocked. You can fool their communications?
Guess we
have been doing it for weeks, Lysath H said. How do you think we learned about their attack plans? Marcus brought up the final part of his presentation. This showed the route his small fleet would take to reach the Thaxani home system. The plan has 3 phases, Lysath explained. First, we disguise our ships to look like damaged Thaxani vessels. Marcus has studied their distress procedures. We know exactly how to make our ships look like they are running from battle. The display showed Valkyrie ships with fake damage and Thaxani identification markers. Second, we use their own communication codes to request safe passage through their territory. Will pretend to be retreating from the frontier worlds. And third, General Kethrin asked, Marcus. And Lysath looked at each other. Then Lysath H spoke. Third, we use a human tactic that Marcus calls playing dead. We pretend to surrender when we reach their home system. We make them think we are bringing valuable intelligence about the war. The Thaxani will want to capture us alive. She continued, will bring us close to their most important facilities. That is when we reveal our true purpose. Princess Zareth thought about everything she had heard. The plan was indeed dangerous. But it was also clever in ways that traditional military thinking could never achieve. How confident are you that this will work? She asked Marcus directly. Marcus spoke, and Lysath translated his response. Marcus says that no plan ever works perfectly. But he also says that humans have survived on their planet by taking calculated risks when the alternative is certain defeat. The room was quiet. For a long time, finally, Princess Zareth stood up. I authorize this mission, she said. Admiral Korath, prepare 50 of our fastest ships. General Kethrin, select crews who can think quickly and adapt to changing situations. Your Highness, Admiral Korath protested. If this plan fails, we will lose not only the ships, but also any chance of defending our home worlds. And if we do nothing, Princess Zareth replied, we will lose everything anyway. At least this way we control when and where the final battle happens. 3 weeks later, the small Valkyrie fleet departed for Thaxani space. The ships had been disguised to look damaged and desperate. Their crews had practiced pretending to be defeated refugees. Marcus and Lysath H stood on the bridge of the lead ship as they entered enemy territory. Everything had gone perfectly so far. The disguised ships had passed through 3 Thaxani patrol zones without being challenged. The home system is just ahead, Lysath H reported. Sensors show massive fleet activity, enemies gathering ships from across their empire. Marcus studied the readings and spoke to Lysath H. Marcus says this is even better than we hoped, she translated. With so many ships in one place, the enemy commanders will be competing for attention from their superiors. They will be less careful about security. As they approached the Thaxoni home system, Marcus revealed the final part of his plan too. The crew, what he proposed was so audacious that even Lysoth questioned whether they had gone too far. But it was too late to turn back now. The disguised Velkhari fleet drifted toward the Thaxoni home system like wounded animals seeking shelter. Their ships looked beaten and desperate. Fake damage covered their hulls. Emergency signals broadcasted calls for help in perfect Thaxoni military language. Marcus stood on the bridge beside Lysoth, watching the enemy fleet grow larger on their screens. Thousands of Thaxoni warships filled the space around 3 massive planets. It was the largest military gathering in galactic history. They are responding to our distress signals, Lyset H reported. 6 escort ships are coming to guide us to the main station. Marcus nodded and spoke quietly. Lyset H translated for the crew. Marcus says to remember that we are defeated refugees who have valuable information about the frontier battles. Act tired and scared, but grateful to be rescued. The Thaxoni escort ships surrounded the Velkhari fleet. Through the communication channels, enemy voices sounded proud and confident. Velkhari vessels, you are now under Thaxoni protection, the lead escort announced. Follow our ships to Station Prime for debriefing. Thank you for saving us, Lysoth replied in Thaxoni. Language. Her voice sounded weak and grateful. We've been running from the frontier for weeks. We have important intelligence about rebel activities. The escort ships led them deeper into the heart of the enemy fleet. Marcus watched the tactical displays with careful eyes. Everything was happening exactly as he had predicted. Station Prime ahead, the pilot reported. It is the size of a small moon. Marcus could see why the Thaxoni had chosen this location for their final gathering. The station could hold millions of people. It was protected by energy shields and surrounded by the most powerful warships in their fleet. Perfect, Marcus said to Lyset H. The bigger the audience, the better the lesson. As their ships docked with Station Prime, Marcus revealed his final plan to the crew. What he proposed made everyone silent with shock. You want to broadcast what? Captain Theland asked. Lyset H repeated Marcus's words. He wants to transmit recordings across the entire Thaxoni communication network, not military messages, personal messages. What kind of personal messages? The captain asked. Marcus activated his personal device. Images appeared showing Thaxoni soldiers, but not in battle. These recordings showed enemy troops in their final moments, calling out for their families, expressing fear, showing that underneath their armor they were just people. During our months on Kepler 44b, Marcus collected these recordings, Lysoth explained. Not to mock the enemy, but to show their people that their soldiers are not the invincible warriors their leaders claim them to be. Marcus spoke, and Lyset H translated his most important words. Marcus says that humans learn something important during their own wars. Every enemy is someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. When people see their soldiers as human beings instead of weapons, they start asking different questions about war. The crew looked uncomfortable. This was not the kind of victory they had expected, but how will this stop their fleet? Captain Theland asked. Watch and learn, Lysoth said. The Thaxoni security team came aboard their ship as planned. And Lysoth pretended to be exhausted refugees, eager to share intelligence about rebel movements. The enemy officers listened eagerly as Lyset H told them lies about Velkhari weaknesses and secret base locations. While the Thaxoni were focused on the false intelligence, Marcus's team worked quickly in the ship's communication center. He connected their equipment to Station Prime's massive broadcasting network. Ready? The communications officer whispered. Marcus took a deep breath and gave the signal. Across the Thaxoni home system, every screen, every communication device, every entertainment channel suddenly showed the same images. Thaxoni soldiers in their final moments, not as proud warriors, but as frightened people calling for their loved ones. The recordings also showed something else. They showed Velkhar soldiers helping wounded Thaxoni troops. They showed captured enemies being treated with kindness. They showed that even in war, mercy was possible. But the most powerful part of the broadcast was Marcus himself, speaking directly to the Thaxoni people in their own language. Lysoth had taught him enough words to deliver his message personally. People of the Thaxani Empire, Marcus said, his voice carrying across millions of communication devices. I am Marcus Chen, a human from the planet Earth. I have fought against your soldiers for many months. The broadcast showed Marcus treating a wounded Thaxani prisoner, giving him water and medical care. Your leaders tell you that your enemies are monsters who must be destroyed. But I have seen your soldiers cry for their mothers. I have seen them show kindness to prisoners. I have seen them die bravely for what they believe is right. The images changed to show Thaxani families receiving news of their sons and daughters, who had died in the war. Your soldiers are not monsters, Marcus continued, and neither are mine. We are all people who want to protect our families and live in peace. The question is, why are we fighting each other instead of finding a better way? On Station Prime, alarms began ringing. Security forces rushed toward the Valkyrie ships, but it was too late. The broadcast was already spreading across the entire empire. Marcus's final message was the most important part. I offer you a choice, he said. Your leaders want to send more of your children to die in a war that will never truly end. But there is another way. A way where nobody else has to die. Where both our peoples can have what they need. The broadcast ended, but its effects were immediate. Across the Thaxani fleet, communication channels filled with confused voices. Soldiers were calling their families. Families were calling their government representatives. Everyone was asking the same question. Why were they really fighting this war? On the command level of Station Prime, Thaxani Admiral Krexith stared at his communication screens in horror. Reports were coming in from across the Empire. Riots had started on 12 worlds. Military units were refusing orders. Families were demanding their children be brought home from the war. Sir, his aide reported, civil control is breaking down on 30% of our worlds. The people are demanding answers about the war. Admiral Krexith realized that Marcus had done something no military attack could achieve. He had turned the Thaxani people against their own leaders. Find those Valkyrie ships, he ordered. Capture them immediately. But when security forces reached the docking bay, they found the ships empty, except for a single message from Marcus. If you want to end this crisis, the message said, meet me at the neutral station in the Altair system. Come alone, and come ready to talk about peace. 3 days later, representatives from both empires met at the neutral station. Marcus sat between Princess Zareth and Admiral Krexith, translating for both sides. Your human has destroyed our empire, Admiral Krexith said angrily. No, Marcus replied through Lysat H. I showed your people the truth. Your empire was already destroying itself through endless war. Princess Zareth spoke carefully. What are you proposing? Marcus activated his device one final time. This showed detailed analysis of resource distribution across both empires. The Thaxani started this war because their worlds are running out of rare minerals, he explained. The Valkyrie have those minerals, but need agricultural products that Thaxani worlds produce in abundance. You're suggesting trade instead of conquest? Admiral Krexith asked. I am suggesting that both sides can have what they need without anyone else dying, Marcus said. Humans learned long ago that cooperation produces better results than competition. The negotiations took 2 weeks. Marcus helped both sides understand that their real enemy was not each other, but the scarcity and fear that had driven them to war. The final treaty included provisions that no one had expected. Thaxani agricultural experts would help develop farming on Valkyrie worlds. Valkyrie mining technology would be shared with Thaxani colonies. Most importantly, cultural exchange programs would help both peoples understand each other as individuals rather than enemies. 6 months later, Princess Zareth stood in the new Human-Alien Cultural Center on the Valkyrie homeworld. Marcus was teaching a class of mixed students, both Valkyrie and Thaxani, about conflict resolution. How do humans end arguments without fighting? A young Thaxani student asked. First, we try to understand why the other person is angry. Marcus explained through his improved language skills. Usually they want something we can help them get, or they are afraid of something we can help them not fear. Lysoth, now promoted to general, watched from the back of the classroom. She had learned more than military tactics from Marcus. She had learned that the strongest victories come not from defeating enemies, but from turning them into friends. "What will you do next?" she asked Marcus after class. Marcus smiled. "Princess Zareth has invited more humans to come here as cultural advisors. We want to help prevent wars before they start. And if that does not work," Marcus's smile became bigger, "then we will teach you more creative ways to solve problems. Humans are very good at finding solutions that nobody else thought of." As evening came, Princess Zareth received reports from across the galaxy. Other species had heard about the peaceful end to the Thax.